So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the government being asked to act now to avoid a crisis at Christmas. So Christmas is a time where people buy a lot more things they wouldn't typically buy through the year. I wouldn't know too much because I don't celebrate Christmas, but I'm assuming some of the people in the comments do, or the majority of you do. So you let me know if you buy stuff you wouldn't normally buy in the year, like toys and stuff. And if you want to send anything to your boy, yeah, let me know. But if you're in the UK, you might have issues doing that. So the government is coming under further pressure to help alleviate the UK's driver shortage. Lobby groups for the retail and transport industries have jointly written into Kwasi Kwarteng, who I still stand by the statement, he's got the coolest name in Westminster, definitely, warning the impact of supply chains is getting worse. So the government have known that the government have historically known that there is a crisis with a lack of lorry drivers. It's only the last 2 years they've gotten worse, thanks to Brexit and the lack of ability to do driving tests. But even then, there was still a shortage. But it's gone far worse because a lot of EU drivers have left and they haven't managed to actually get new drivers into the system. Not to mention the fact that a lot of lorry drivers leave because the working conditions and the pay isn't great. So the government can say they're doing a lot to fix the issue, but they're doing really nothing. They're relying on industry to fix the issue, but industry is struggling to fix it because these are systemic problems. Ministers have said employees should invest in British workers, and again, you're relying on British workers to pay up front for a lorry driver's licence, which I'm told is around 3,600, which is a lot of money, especially if you're kind of trying to skill up or if you're unemployed. It's going to be very difficult for you to get $3,000. So I think the government should just cover the cost at this point because they don't really have much choice at this point. It's the shortages are getting worse. More and more people are seeing them. They're going to become more apparent. Supermarkets can't hide them forever, and I think the supermarkets are going to get very tired of hiding them. And if I were them, I'd just be open. We're having supply chain issues because of a shortage of lorry drivers. You don't even have to mention the B word, but if you just put it into people's heads that there's a shortage of lorry drivers and this is a problem, and you ask people to figure out what has changed over the last year. Why is it last year we weren't having all of these problems, but this year we are? That's the question people need to ask themselves, especially once the double vax protocol comes in, where double vax people don't need to isolate. While there was a shortage of HGV drivers prior to the pandemic and Brexit, these two events have exacerbated the situation. The pandemic halted driver training and testing for over 12 months, while an estimated 25,000 drivers returned home EU drivers had returned home during the pandemic and following the end of the transition period. So the shortage is 100,000. We've lost 25,000. So even if we had all those EU drivers stay, the shortage still would have been about 75,000, which is still a lot. It wouldn't be as bad as it is now, especially since we knew they were operating at a shortage anyways, but this situation made it far worse. The situation is likely to worsen over the next few weeks. The groups warn the start of the school year, return to workers to offices is likely to increase the number of deliveries and locations. Obviously, as kids go back to school, the schools will need deliveries, and offices as well, because offices obviously supply lunch to people and other office supplies, pens, all that stuff. They might have to buy in more like laptops and things or computers, so if they can't get access to them, it's another problem. And these are going to be traditionally shipped in by a lorry and maybe delivered to the actual offices by a van, but it's normally a lorry that gets it to the main distribution places because it's just way easier. The groups call for 3 specific measures, so we'll look at one by one and discuss. So review the decision not to grant temporary work visas to HGV drivers from the European Union. It would, in the short term, while a driver testing backlog is cleared and new drivers trained. So what they're saying is lower the restrictions on HGV drivers, which the government should really have done by now. But the problem is those EU drivers may not come here because of the whole IR35 thing and the fact that their stay is not guaranteed long term. So why would you want to move to a country for a couple of months to work? Because they'll have no idea how long they'll be allowed to stay in the UK. Will it be 2 months, 3 months until the backlog's cleared, 6, 7 months? They'll have no idea. And where there's no stability, people don't want to go. People don't want to go to a country that's unstable, and the UK are probably one of the most unstable countries in Europe right now. So that's the first point. It's not going to solve it. Reform the National Skills Fund to enable HGV drivers training to be funded by injecting flexibility into apprenticeship levy, such as enabling front loading of training to get trainees driving as soon as possible. So what they're saying is make it so they get experience straight away, which is a good idea. But obviously, it's not going to solve the problems that we have now. It's not the issue isn't getting people trained quick. The training process isn't super slow. You can't just speed it up and expect that to solve the problem. It may help slightly. The issue is there's been a massive backlog of tests because of the because of the pandemic, and because the government could have prioritised tests. They could have said, look, we'll allow tests for lorry drivers to carry on even through the waves, because this is important. Other industries were kept open, key workers. So the government could have done this, but they're just too dim to figure it out. And improved testing sites so HGV drivers can be tested daily. Again, that's a decent one. But I think once the double vax rule comes in, as long as a lot of lorry drivers have been vaxxed, it won't matter too much. So we've seen. The Road Haulage Association has already said there was a shortfall of 60,000 lorry drivers in the UK over the summer. Now they put that figure at 100,000. Supermarkets such as Tesco and Aldi have been offering bonuses and other incentives to boost recruitment, but the labour squeeze continues because what you're doing is not really adding more drivers into the system. You're just shuffling them around. So they might go from working for, say, Argos to working from Tesco's. You still have a shortage. It's just now it's in a different part of the sector. That's all they've done. It's musical chairs at this point. Or as some people would say, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. A government spokesperson said on Friday the British people this is where the government blames the British people for this, and I think we'll talk more about this in another video if I get the chance to record that one. Which is the government saying that the British people repeatedly voted to an end of free movement and take back control of our immigration system. So the issue is that from the polls that I've seen, the majority of Britons actually support allowing heavy goods vehicle drivers into the country without requiring a visa. A lot of people do back that initiative. So this point the government are making here, yes, did people vote to end free movement? Yes. But did they, when you talked about an Australian points-based system, they thought you were actually going to use a Australia points-based system and look at the industries we have shortages in and go from there. But we haven't. And saying employers should invest in the domestic workforce instead of relying on labour from abroad. Well, they're doing that, pal. You guys didn't help by allowing, the Rona to spread dramatically through the country and stopping them from doing, lorry driving tests. You didn't help with that, did you, pal? So these points that they're making here are just ridiculous in the first place. Government saying we announced a package of measures to help tackle the HGV driver shortage, including plans to streamline the process for new drivers to gain their HGV licence and increase the number of tests to be conducted. That's fine, but what they've really got to do is make these tests free. Make the process free to get more people in from poorer and disadvantaged backgrounds if you want more people to get into the industry. As pay goes up, it might be more enticing for people to think, look, I want to be a lorry driver because the pay is decent now. But the thing is, if they can't afford 3.6 grand, they ain't going to do it, bro, because they ain't got the money. It's not hard unless they go into debt to do it, but that's a risky maneuver if you fail, especially. So make the test free or subsidise them at least. Do something intelligent, use your brains, guys. Come on. We have also temporarily relaxed the driver hours rule. I mean, this is a red herring here because that's not going to help. So realistically, from these 3 points, right, the RHA had made, which one of these are going to help? None of them, because even if you put the HGVs on the emergency visa list, unless you offer some stability and even some pay up front, it's not gonna work. You might get a few hundred of them in, maybe 1,000, which will help, but it's not. When you're talking a shortage of 100,000, what you need is to at least get, say, 50,000 through sharpish, within the next month or two. Those are the numbers you need to look at. You need to half the deficit, and getting in 1,000 lorry drivers in from the EU, if we could even do that, would be okay, but it's not going to help that much. Reform the skills thing, that's fine, but again, that's not going to do it. And improve testing. What the RHA should be pushing for is the government to start subsidising tests. The government to start subsidising tests so we can get more people through the door. That's what they need to be doing right now. It's a shortage industry. Haulage is critical to the UK for most modern countries. You need heavy goods vehicles to transport a mass amount of goods to wherever they're going, be it a supermarket, a shop, a hospital, wherever they're going, they're in desperate need. Warehouses, it doesn't matter, that we need heavy goods vehicle drivers, and the UK has a massive shortage of them, so the government has to do more in order to help. Whether that's making reforms for the IR35 tax rules, just specifically for lorry drivers, they need to do something here, because I don't know at what point the British public finally realise there's a problem. It might be never, especially given how bad the media are and how hard people refuse to actually look at what's going on in the world, and how, kind of how uneducated the electorate is. I'm going to say, I'm not going to be mean. I don't want to talk down to people, but let's not get it twisted now. There were a lot of working class people who voted Tory. So when you vote against your best interests, you're not the brightest person in the room. You might be in the lower end of the population of a room. But point being is that I don't know at what point the British public realise. Maybe when Christmas is in a crisis, when they can't get the toys they want, or they pay over the odds because of scalpers and whatever, and they can't get a turkey because we have a shortage of meat processors and transportation. Maybe at that point they realise, when more and more restaurants don't have staff or stock. I don't know. I don't know when people realise what's going on. And, you guys are going to have to tell me in the comments here, because a lot of you are more knowledgeable on these affairs than I am. So you're going to have to let me know, at what point do you think the British public will realise how much of a disaster Brexit is? Because truth be told, if it's not within the next 6 months, we'll never figure it out. Or maybe it'll be once we start doing import checks and things get way worse. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.